Friends is a classic TV show that is hilarious all throughout, and its timeline is almost on point all the time, very little mistakes throughout, and it's very difficult to do that, especially with a TV series that was as long as it was. And today I'm going to go over the show, the cast, and how the show relates to me, myself, personally. Friends was a TV show that ran for 10 full seasons and had 236 full length episodes. It also ended quite openly compared to other shows, which just that is a testament in and of itself to how well the show was written. Most of the episodes are really original, and you can see where TV shows got ideas from Friends itself, and it is absolutely hysterical, but it is also still truly relatable in a lot of situations, and I'll get more into that later. And now that I think about it, Friends is probably the TV show that I've laughed at the most over the years, despite the fact of how many times I've watched it. I don't know how many times at this point, but every single time, almost every single episode, I just laugh so hard. TV shows, especially when it comes to sitcoms, are extremely difficult to write. And Friends always has its surprises, whether it's like something new on set, or a new set, or the wardrobe, or a scene that drastically changes the entire show. And each episode is very thorough with that. And I think that's what keeps you watching. And another thing that keeps the audience watching Friends, I believe, is all the overarching storylines. Like, something is always going on with each friend in each episode. So then you're engaged and you never have the thought of, like, oh, wait, why is Phoebe still in the show? Nothing important has really happened to her in a while. So I think that's one reason why it's so easy to get into this show and really sit down and watch it. Friends is a TV show about 6 friends that hang out and deal with real life issues as 20-somethings that are still trying to just figure out their lives. And I'm going to go over 3 hilarious but still relatable scenes that I think people can identify to the most. There are many hilarious moments, as I said, but one moment that stuck out to me, and I think to many others that have watched the show, is when Ross Geller does the whole, like, I'm fine thing with his voice when he finds out. I'm going to try not to give spoilers, so this might be a little vague, but he finds something out about 2 friends, and he's, like, very upset, and, like, you just see it on his face, and finally the 2 other friends just look at him and go, are you okay? And he goes, I can't do it, but he's like, I'm fine. I don't know why it's coming out all loud and squeaky, but, like, really, and then his voice drops super low, like a lot lower than his normal voice, and he just goes, I'm fine, like super low. And I think this relates to it being both hilarious and relatable in everyday situation, because I think this is how so many people feel in situations they're not fine with, but they have to deal with, such as, like, during finals or midterms in school. I see, like, Facebook and Instagram, like, social media, and it's flooded with, like, a little clip of that scene, and it's like, this is me during finals week. Like, I'm pretending I'm fine, but, like, I gotta deal with it. So I think it was Ross trying to make a hard situation a little bit easier, which I think is something we all do in a hard situation as well. So if you've seen the series, you know 2 characters, Chandler Bing and Joey Tribbiani, are roommates throughout most of the show, and Joey is an out-of-work actor through most of it, so often he can't make rent, he can't pay for the apartments, take out dinners, his own acting lessons, and that kind of left Chandler to pay for all of it. And after years of that and years of them living together, Joey decides to finally pay Chandler back when he gets a good job on a TV show. However, he doesn't really do it with a check or a cash or anything of decent value. He gets it with the shiny big gold bracelet that's inscribed with the words "Best Buds." And Chandler goes on to tell Phoebe Buffay, another friend in the show, how terrible he thinks this gift is. And then you see Joey walk into the coffee shop where they normally hang out, and he overhears it and he's upset. Chandler goes to him and he promises that he'll never take it off, and he realizes he lost it, so he went to go buy a new one. And then as soon as he got back from getting a new one, he found the one that he had lost. And then Joey comes in and he goes, "Wait, why do you have two?" And he goes, "Well, the other one is for you because we're best buds." And I think this relates to a lot of people, because I feel like at one point we've gotten a bad gift from a family member, friend, close friend, whoever it was. And I think this episode displays how to deal with that certain situation with a good attitude, because Chandler turned a really bad gift into something that ended up being special for the both of them. And lastly, I have one hilarious yet relatable moment, and it's when there's a dinner party at Monica's apartment, and they're just like having small conversations and talking, and then the guy Rachel likes at the time is on the other side of the room, and she's talking to Phoebe, and she's asking her, like, "Hey, do you think he likes me?" You know, that sort of thing. And Joey comes up and he goes, "Well, if he doesn't like you, then this is all just a moot point." Obviously, Rachel and Phoebe are very confused, and they kind of just look at him and go, "A moot point?" And he's like, "If he doesn't like you, it's just a moot point. It's like a cow's opinion. It just doesn't matter. It's moot." And I know it's really silly, but that's something I've even kind of taken into my life and put into the back of my head, especially in like certain situations, especially if I have to be professional. Because I ran into a conflict at work. A few of my other coworkers did as well, and we kind of turned it into what Joey Tribbiani would call a moot point, rather than turn it into a huge conflict and having to have a very long meeting over it. So when a difference of opinion occurs, like this scene kind of just comes into my head, like, would I rather lose a person or situation, or should I just shrug it off, because in the end it won't really matter? There is also one more topic that I want to touch on that I just now remembered, is the topic of motherhood throughout the show. And it's actually done in every single character has I'll spoil this for you, they all end up having kids in some sort of way, and I'm not going to say who did what, but I'm going to go ahead and say it because I think this relates to unconventional audiences. Because I think in TV shows it's like, oh, the couple gets together, they're dating for a long time or married, and they have a kid, and kind of like a happily ever after situation. And with Friends, they keep it more on the real side. Like, towards the end of the show, a couple finds out that they can't get pregnant, and the only other option would be surrogacy, and she wouldn't want to watch that. So one of the forms of motherhood that is adopted onto the show is adoption. And another one, a character carries babies for someone that means a lot to her. And then the other one, she gets pregnant unexpectedly and ends up being a single mom for a good portion of the show. And I think that's something else that people watching the show finds very attracting, is that it's still keeps it very real and relatable. So as you can tell just from those 4 little snippets, a lot happens in the 10 seasons of the show, and it brings in the perfect amount of drama as well, while still keeping it light. And I think that's part of what makes it so great, and this makes the changes flow easily throughout the series. And next, I am going to go over the cast and what it means to me. The first character I'm going to discuss was played by David Schwimmer. It was Ross Geller. He is a paleontologist in the show. He's one of the oldest characters, and he has a lot of like romantic blocks throughout the show, just to give you a little background on him. But what ties his character to me personally is that he reminds me a lot of my sister's personality. They both always stand up for what they believe in, which is great. But no matter what the situation is, that means they always have to be right as well. So even though that's super overbearing, I know that I am always getting a true and honest opinion from my sister when I am talking to her, and that she just wants the best for me. Courtney Cox played a character called Monica Geller, which is Ross's little sister. She's a cook on the show, and she also has her fair share of roadblocks as an early 20-something. And she's also known in her friend group for being the neat freak. And she reminds me, as silly as it sounds, my dad. He is the neat freak of the family. If you leave a pair of shoes in our living room, he will pick them up and either put them on the stairs or right next to the stairs. So when you go up to go to your room, they're right there. It's very passive aggressive, but it's like, hey, I don't want your shoes here. Put them upstairs. And she kind of did that in an episode early on when Rachel cleaned the apartment, and they kind of just all pointed out like, hey, you're a neat freak, and she goes, oh no, definitely not. And at the end of the episode, they're like, hey, so are you gonna leave your shoes out here? And she goes, yes, I am. I will get them later. Or not, they might stay there, I don't know, like that kind of thing. And it cuts back, and she's like in her bed laying and thinking like, how am I gonna get the shoes? Can I get them now? Like, what if I get them early in the morning? Or she's just thinking of these ways of like being able to pick up so it's perfect. And earlier in that episode, Rachel cleans the whole apartment and she moves the ottoman, and that's actually similar to something I did, because I was home alone and I just was doing chores, so I vacuumed. And we have this little these two chairs with an ottoman, and I'll just show you. It's not great lighting, but those chairs right there. So the ottoman, I moved it. So like if these are the chairs, this is how the ottoman is. And I was vacuuming, and I was like, oh, you know what? It kind of looks weird like that. I'm gonna rotate it. And like later that night, my parents and I got dinner, and then we came back, and my dad sat down on the on his chair, which is that one right by the ottoman, and he put his feet up. He sits back up. He rotates the ottoman back to where it was, and he leans back and puts his feet back up. And I'm just like, oh gosh, okay. And like I just thought of that as I was writing that blog. Like, he did almost the exact same thing that Monica did. And even though Monica is a neat freak such as my dad, they are always there for you no matter what. And at the end of the day, they're just a really good friend. Joey Tribbiani is played by Matt LeBlanc, and I kind of gave you a backstory, but just as a refresher, he was an out-of-work actor throughout most of the show, but he's also a womanizer on the show, which reminds me a lot of one of my coworkers. I haven't worked with him that long, and he's just here for the summer, but he is either eating, like Joey, sandwich, piece of pizza, whatever it is, he's always eating, or he's flirting with a coworker, just like Joey. Lisa Kudrow plays the iconic Phoebe Buffay, very quirky and outgoing, and it kind of reminds me of my lifelong best friend. They both are always looking on the bright side of the situation, and they're both just like super quirky, but not in like a nerdy kind of way, and they're both also very outgoing and easy to talk to, and you just know that's a person you can always go to and confide in, no matter what it is you have to talk to them about. Matthew Perry plays my favorite character, Chandler Bing, in the TV series. And from my opinion, he resembles my boyfriend a lot. He can always crack a joke no matter what the situation is. And although they're both witty and sarcastic and kind of like refrain from serious topics most of the time, you know they're the kind of friend that will always have a listening ear, and they're your shoulder to cry on in a lot of situations, and they'll just always be there for you no matter what. Rachel Green is played by Jennifer Aniston. Like Rachel, I grew up in a relatively stable home, which made life a little bit easier. But like at the beginning of the show with Rachel, I was very tired of relying on my parents, and I just wanted a little bit more independence, so I got a full-time job to start paying for things myself. Also, I feel like Rachel, I do go out of my way to build close relationships. Like Rachel started all over in New York City. I kind of did that with college. Even though I'm like from right outside of Boulder, I went out of my way to build close relationships. But I also have gone out of my way to maintain old friendships as well. And relationships do mean a lot to me, and I am a very loyal and true friend, like Rachel is to all of her friends in the TV series. As you can tell, it's pretty easy to see why this is one of the best sitcoms that has ever been made, from stunning sets to amazing trend-setting wardrobes and hairstyles and a stellar cast. When you combine everything together from the show, you could see why Friends has such a large fandom. And just remember, when life seems to be going in the wrong direction, no one told you life was going to be this way.